What's up, devils? It's J-Dog here, back again for another episode. Just kidding. Not actually J-Dog. Although I did use that stupid-ass name when I was a kid. I think everybody was J and same age, whatever. Stupid joke. Anyway, back with another Tales from the Catacombs, where I answer the questions that you submit about running a label and imparting wisdom and just some shit that I've learned over the years being involved in the underground. So to kick things off today, got a bunch of really good questions. Start out with one from Cloud Serpent 5, aka my buddy Alfred from the Parametal Files podcast. And he asks, what are your thoughts on production quality? Will it make or break a demo or EP for you? And does each release get mastered specifically for the platform, CD, tape, or vinyl it is being released on? So yeah, these are really good questions. Go figure, Alfred's fucking man. Yes. Production quality will absolutely make or break a release for me. I try to be like, I care about the quality of the music more than the recording, but in this day and age, it's easier to get a quality recording than it is to get like a shitty one almost, if that makes any sense. Like, everything, it's easier to do digital recordings as opposed to like an analog stuff where you can get like a shittier sound, but you can kind of understand that the music's there, which is kind of prevalent in black metal. I think one of the reasons why I don't like raw black metal is because it's like stupid to me that these people are intentionally recording their music to sound like shit. The bands that did like raw black metal stuff in 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have any other options, so that's what they had. It wasn't like they intentionally wanted to sound like fucking trash. So when bands do that these days, I kind of think like maybe they're losing the point of things, and like maybe they're just young and they're missing the perspective of, well, that wasn't intentional. They didn't want it to sound necro because that's what they were going for. It's literally all they could do because they didn't have other options, and digital recording wasn't where it was then. So I absolutely want recordings to sound good. So if a band sends me something that sounds like musically it's good, but it could use some work, I'll absolutely pass it along to a buddy of mine and have him mix and master the music and kind of like bump everything up. Because a lot of times I understand that bands don't know what they're doing with recording, and maybe they're just like their friends record them, so they're more focused on being a band, which I can definitely appreciate. But for the level that I'm at, I want to work with bands that understand the importance of sounding good, because not everything deserves a physical release. You can record some good shit that you just put out digitally, and that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to looking for somebody to put it out and trying to market it, it's a little bit tougher of a sell for me, because I'm not gonna be that invested in just like your whatever bedroom band. I want it to be something that you took your time with, and you really put a lot of effort into doing. Otherwise, just do it yourself. So yeah, absolutely. Recording quality is super important for me. Like, that's not to say that I won't put out stuff that sounds a little bit raw or whatever. Sometimes that's the aesthetic of like, you know, some blown out stuff, like, you know, like noise punk and raw punk stuff. I do dig some of that stuff, but it's not really something that I put out. I don't think I put out any of that yet because I just haven't found the right band, honestly. The second part of your question is also really good. And it does tie into what I was just talking about right now, which is professional bands. They understand something. When you get a recording and you pay for mixing and mastering of your recording, you get a vinyl master, a CD master, and a digital master. If you're only getting one master, you're working with somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing and is an amateur. All professional recording artists and recording engineers, they know, they'll ask you what you think you need, and they can export all three formats for you. It's not a problem. They're just different levels that they need to push them out at. It's super crucial. You cannot put, I mean, you can put out your digital or your CD master on vinyl, but that's really fucking lazy. And I don't do that shit. For vinyl stuff that I've done, I've specifically paid, for a vinyl master, and that's exclusive just to vinyl. And I think that makes things a little bit more special in terms of when you're listening to the album. It's going to have a different sound to it. So it's absolutely important to get multiple masters for your music if you're trying to do physical releases. Again, if you're not trying to do physical releases, it doesn't fucking matter. You can put whatever turds out there unmixed. It's fine. I listen to a lot of unmixed music. I love it. Would I put it out? No, but you know, it's important that you have your levels corrected, and that is something that bands should realize that they need to do. And I think a lot of bands that I work with understand that. I tend to only work with bands that kind of, they're not brand new. They've been around and they know how things go. So, great questions, Alfred. Fucking appreciate it, man. The next question comes from the Dirty Hesher, and they ask, what's the best way to go about booking a full-on tour? 2 weeks at the least, let's say. Honestly, I will tell you my thoughts on booking a full-on tour and, you know, doing at least 2 weeks. Don't. If you can't set up a tour and you don't know people in multiple places that can help you book your tour, if you don't have a booking agent, it doesn't make sense for you to go and eat ass on the road and lose a ton of money just to say that you played a show in some other bumfuck town. It's not that important. I might be jaded because I've played a ton of shitty shows, and then I've also played a bunch of really good shows. But for me, I think if you're not going to be on a tour package, and if you're not established, like you don't have you don't have a guaranteed draw or a guarantee, and people want to see you, it's not necessary for you to go on a full-on tour just yet where you are in your band. I'm not saying that you shouldn't tour. I definitely think bands should tour. It's super important. If you want to get your band to the next level, that's the only way to get to the national level, is by touring or by putting in a ton of work in your local level to helping out touring bands. for me, what I would suggest is working from the ground floor up. Become the big fish in your pond where you live. When bands come through on tour, play and support them. Show them a good time. Give them all your money from the show. Don't fucking, if you're in a local band, don't take fucking money from touring bands when you're playing in the same area. It's pay it forward, especially if you're trying to get out there. And when you are ready to tour yourself, you can go hit up those bands from their specific areas, and they should return the favor for you and set you up with shows. I think that making friends with people all over is super, super fucking crucial to setting up successful tours, because anybody can go and play shows. But do you want to just play to fucking girlfriends or like the people who are working the bar or whatever? Like, fuck no, that shit sucks. So it's important to establish relationships with people all over in different communities. That way you have a better opportunity at having a good, successful time when you do hit the road and when you're ready. So my suggestions on that are, become friends with people, support bands, talk to them, kind of see like, oh, someone's going to go on tour, maybe they need support, go out with them. Don't just do it yourself. Especially right now when gas is like fucking $7 a gallon. It's really fucking stupid to be out touring, just to say that you toured. Like, who fucking cares? Like, that shit doesn't mean anything. To me, it's like, yeah, I don't get it. But if you can find the right people that will set you up with successful places, then that's great. But like I'm saying, when you meet people, you need to make sure that they are able to have a draw in their local areas as well. So, just because you play with somebody that's from, I don't know, let's say New Mexico, and you want to play New Mexico, yeah, totally hit them up. But maybe hit them up and ask them who are bands that are worth playing with out in their area and who has a draw, and try to see if you can do something like that so that you're not just losing out on the road and just kind of touring for the reason alone of like you just want to feel good about yourself and say that you toured, because that's just a really quick way to burn yourself out. So I hope that doesn't I'm not trying to be like too much of a bummer to certain people, but I think that some folks need to realize that their expectations are unrealistic. So, kind of take things into consideration and really ask yourself if you're ready to tour, because oftentimes you're not. And if people aren't asking for you to come and tour constantly, it's not necessary. But if we're talking about just doing like a 2-week tour, here's what my suggestion would be. Since there's only there's less than, there's probably like 20 to 25 markets in America where you can have good shows and actually make money. Of course, they can be off nights if you're like a brand new band or not established. But for me, I think a really good one for bands on the West Coast would be just stay along the coastline. You gotta do the Pacific Northwest. You have to do California, and you gotta do Arizona. Within these 4 states, you can stagger a 2-week tour, playing shows, and having a good time and actually not lose all of your money. I don't think it's necessary to hit middle America unless you're like a super established or on a touring package with established acts. And if you live on the East Coast, I think that you can hit up like New York, Chicago, Washington D.C., and Florida, kind of. There's places, but you got to stay on the edges on each coast if you want to do kind of decent, because that's where more the bigger markets are for people that are into shows. So I think that those are things that should be helpful. And yeah, like I said, just reach out to bands and talk to people, and don't just hit up random bars and venues and be like, hey, we're coming through, we want to play, and can you book this? Because you're just gonna have a shitty fucking time and play to nobody. You need to be in contact with people in the local areas that are involved in the communities that can set you up for success. So yeah, hopefully that helps out and give a little bit of guidance on what I've learned and in regards to touring and the importance of connecting with others in the underground. So the next question comes from Air Dooney, and they asked, how do costs compare for different formats, and how do you estimate how many to press? So the costs for different formats, that's a pretty straightforward question here. When we're looking at tapes, you're looking at about $1,000. I don't do anything under 200 copies because it just doesn't make sense to me. You're looking at if you want to do CDs, to do professionally replicated CDs from glass masters, you can't do anything under 300 to 500 copies. And for those, you're looking at anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500. And if you're doing vinyl, you're going to be looking at, I wouldn't do anything under 500 copies. I know a lot of people do like 100 and 250. I don't know. I guess I can understand not wanting to sit on stuff, but I think that if you're going to put something out, the goal is to sell copies of it, not just to get rid of it, you know? So if you're looking at, say, doing 500 copies of a LP on vinyl, and we're not talking about gatefold or anything like that, you know, you're looking at anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000. Could be more depending on who you work with. So it definitely gets pretty costly. And the way I estimate on how many to press is I'll just, you know, I kind of like check things out by doing tapes. And then if it's like, if the tapes sell really well, then it's like, okay, let's do another format and just kind of guess from there. But yeah, that's kind of like the cost. I don't think a lot of people realize how expensive it is to do things. So when they ask labels to put stuff out for them, it's not like, hey, you know, can you put this out for me? Like, you know, I think would be a good fit or whatever. It's like, hey, can I have a couple $1,000s from you? That's the reality of the situation. And a couple $1,000s from you that you're not going to make back because we're not going to do shit. So that's kind of a big reason why I don't accept band submissions. So let me see what the next question is we got on here. So Navigote, Josh asks, you have amazing international bands on your label. How do you acquire them? Well, first of all, thank you. So for me, with the international bands that I've worked with, I pretty much know everybody that I've worked with on some sort of level, be it 1 to 2 degrees away from actually knowing them and having met them in real life. So we've just been friends. Either like we've been friends online on, you know, like our personal pages outside of the label stuff for years, or I'm just generally a fan of theirs and their work. So then I reach out to them and try to help them out and bring them to America. And it's all about like the connections that we make through DIY, for me at least. So that's how I stay connected with the international bands. Like for instance, I put out a band called Ooze Puss from Japan, and I personally fucking love Coffins, the band, and I've seen them before. I've known some people that went on tour with them, and I've become friends with Bungo, and like we just stayed connected online for years. So when he was doing his new project, you know, he sent it to me, and it was already like, well, hey, I've wanted to work with you for a while, so let's do that. Another one is like the band Vile Apparition from Australia. Their previous band, Suicide, came out to America, and my buddy, who is playing in Exhumation now, was driving them through, and Devlin from Mortal Wound was with them as well, and he was driving up and through America with them, so I got to meet them in Suicide, and then they were telling me about Vile Apparition, which became afterwards. Then, you know, I go to Australia, I go hang out with Vile Apparition and Gutless guys and other friends and bands, because, you know, I personally have been playing in bands for 20 years as well, and supporting touring bands from all over the world. So that really helps with me meeting people and finding these bands from other places. Like, you know, for instance, like Fossilization, I've been friends with Tiago for, you know, close to 15 years. He was a fan of Swamp Witch, and we became friends through that way. And then, you know, I dug his band Jupiterian, but they were signed. So then when he did this new project, I was immediately, like, when in the demo stages, he had like wrote about it, and I was like, dude, yeah, I want to fucking do it. So it's like, you know, it's all about the power of the DIY network and who you meet and who your friends are. And that's, to me, that's what's like important, and how I work with so many people that are international. And then with others, it's just, you know, I'm a fan of theirs, and I ask like other friends of theirs about them, and they tell me about them, and it just kind of works out like that. You know, I think it's important to make real connections with folks. And I think maybe the last question for today comes from Yoga from Exhumation, actually. And, you know, I was just talking about my buddy that was on tour with Suicide, who is now playing in Exhumation, and Exhumation's from Indonesia. So yeah, it's another one of those like connections. But Yoga asks, can you ask one of the bands on your roster if they're going to tour Southeast Asia if possible? Yoga, one of my biggest goals is to tour. I want to tour Australia, Indonesia, and Japan. I've put out bands in all three areas, strategically because I want to play with them all, and also because I want to visit these places, and I would love to come out and play there at some point. If not me, I'm sure another person will. I'm talking to another band from Indonesia that you're friends with, so they'll be touring out there. But I mean, I know it's not quite the same. If I can work with another Australian band, you know, it's just like really quick for them to hop over to Indo. I know Suicide and Fetid did that years ago. But yeah, I personally would love to come over there. A goal that I was trying to make come to fruition was the band Oath, the sludge band from Indo. I was trying to get them to do something and put it out, and maybe do something with Swamp Witch. That way we could come out to Indonesia and play with them. But you know, I'd also love. I'm waiting for Hall. That stuff's fucking awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of really killer bands, and you know, I have an endless love for the like maniacs out in Southeast Asia. So I would absolutely love to make that come to fruition at some point. Thanks for asking that. Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna cut this one today. We'll do another one soon. But I appreciate all the questions. If you have any questions that you'd like me to go over, submit them, and I will do my best to answer and address them, and hopefully not get too long-winded and bum people out. But you know, I can only be honest and be myself, so it is what it is. Anyway, take it easy, folks. Be well.